What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're going to talk about sweeteners. Because let's face it, we all like our sweet foods, but we don't like the health consequences that are associated with them, like overweight and acne. So, as a health conscious consumer, you might know this experience that I had several times, that I'm determined to reduce my sugar intake and I go online and I look for recipes without sugar and I find plenty of recipes. But when I go through the ingredient lists, I see things like maple syrup, honey, agave nectar, coconut sugar. And when you look at the nutrition labels of these foods, you see that they are mostly sugar as well. And so you're wondering, are they actually any healthier than the regular white refined table sugar? So that's what we're trying to answer today. Now, some of you might say, well, of course they're healthier because they're more natural. But just because something is natural doesn't necessarily mean that it is healthy. This very simplistic categorization of something is natural and therefore it is good, in this case healthy, or it is unnatural and therefore it is bad, in this case unhealthy, is known as the appeal to nature fallacy. And there are several examples to show that this does not always hold true. So we could, for example, think of all the plants that are very toxic to us, yet they are very natural, and contrast that with all the medications that can save our lives, yet they are very unnatural. Also, many of the foods that we regard as natural and healthy today were in their original wild and truly natural form unhealthy or even toxic to us. Two examples would be almonds, which in their wild form contained large amounts of cyanide, or more precisely a precursor of cyanide. Because the plant wants to protect its seed. It doesn't want anyone to eat the seed, right? The almond is the seed. It's important for reproduction. So the plant has evolved to enrich the seed with this toxic component to avoid animals from eating it. And only through very unnatural breeding and selection by us humans has it become a very healthy food. Similar with canola. Canola oil is a very healthy oil recommended by many health authorities and nutrition science organizations, more so even than the highly touted extra virgin olive oil. Yet canola oil, or canola itself in its more wild form, was probably toxic to us due to high contents of erucic acid, a toxic fatty acid that can lead to heart damages. So, as you see, this simplistic argumentation, it's natural and therefore it is good, is not enough to make the case for either of the sweeteners here. But so how do we analyze whether something is healthy or not? Well, there are several things that we should look at. First off, there's the glycemic index, which shows how strongly a food affects our blood sugar levels. A high glycemic index means that our blood sugar levels rise very quickly and very high after consumption of the food, and then oftentimes they drop dramatically and even below the original baseline of our blood sugar levels. And we get this what's called a hypoglycemic dip, which has an array of negative health consequences. So we want to prefer low glycemic foods that don't give us this rapid blood sugar rise, but instead a more slowly rise in blood sugar levels without the hypoglycemic dip. And then secondly, we can look at satiety. How much does a food induce satiety? How full do we feel afterwards? Are we very quickly hungry again and might overeat on calories? Or are we satiated for a long time and thereby facilitate a healthy body weight? Then thirdly, we can look at nutritional value. How much vitamins, minerals are actually in that food aside from the sugar? And finally, we might look at the effect of this sweetener on different biomarkers. Does it perhaps have some positive aspects that counteract the negative impact of the sugar? Are there perhaps bioactive substances that fight inflammation, or that improve insulin sensitivity, or that improve blood lipids. So all those are things that we're going to look at. Today we're going to start out with the glycemic index. So why is the glycemic index important? Well, I already mentioned we want to avoid high glycemic foods and choose low glycemic foods. The high glycemic foods lead to this rapid blood sugar increase and the hypoglycemic dip, which gives us a lot of energy at first, and then we feel deprived of energy and we feel hungry again due to this hypoglycemic dip, which sort of signals our body, oh, there's not enough glucose in our bloodstream, there might be a starvation situation. So the body signals, oh, we need to eat something, and it will also toss fatty acids into our bloodstream, which have an array of negative health effects as well, and might facilitate increase in blood lipids and atherosclerotic diseases, heart disease, etc. So that's the one point. We might facilitate the formation of diabetes by reducing our insulin sensitivity when we constantly consume those high glycemic foods, which, by the way, are typically processed carbohydrates like white flour products, white bread, etc. And of course, the regular sugar products and sweets and soft drinks, stuff like that. Now, also the high glycemic index foods tend to increase inflammation via the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines and the production of free radicals. And this might also be linked to the observation that those foods are associated with higher rates of different types of cancer. So you see there's a whole array of negative health consequences there. And worst of all, it makes our skin worse. So high glycemic diet is a risk factor for acne, and low glycemic diets have been shown to improve acne. So in general, the glycemic index is a scale from 0 to 100, 100 being glucose, and we generally have the categorization of anything below 55 is a low glycemic index, 55 to 69 is a medium glycemic index, and then anything from 70 and beyond is a high glycemic index.